And that's the Yemen airstrikes that happened. Now, obviously, if you haven't heard about this, I'd be surprised at this point in time, unless you haven't been like on social media or whatever. But this, in my opinion, is a distraction of the U.S. government. And, you know, they got the UK backing them in this. And the UK, I gotta say this, sorry. I need the UK to have a backbone and to do their own thing. No shade to my peeps in the land of the U to the K. But the UK for years has continued to follow the moves of the US. Whatever the US does, the UK kind of just follows along. And I'm a need for the UK to just stand on their own every now and then. That's it. Just stand on their own. Okay. All right. Now, I believe that the US government, part of the reason that they chose to attack the Houthis in Yemen is not just because they are blocking those weapons from getting to Israel. It is also as a distraction to take your attention away from what's happening at the ICJ. As Richie Medhurst told you, none of these mainstream media networks even live streamed it. They don't really want you to really know about it. So think about that. So we'll start with the attack that happened. I'll tell you how this could implicate Saudi Arabia in some way, shape, or form. And then also you have to keep in mind as well, Yemen has already been under attack multiple times by Saudi Arabia. Again, thanks to the U.S. government supplying them the arms to do so. And now Yemen is under attack again.
As we're following right now, a United States official tells CNN the U.S. military has carried out strikes on multiple Houthi targets in Yemen. I want to bring in our team for more information. And Oren Lieberman, you're joining us from the Pentagon. Let's get the latest from you first. This is a big deal if the U.S. is attacking targets inside Yemen. The Houthis are, of course, backed by Iran. This war could be escalating big time.
The U.S. and the U.K., to a large extent, have been telegraphing the fact that if attacks on commercial shipping lanes in the Red Sea, a critical waterway, continued, the U.S. would be compelled to act. We are now seeing those actions take place in real time. A U.S. official telling CNN that the U.S. is hitting multiple targets in Yemen controlled by the Houthis. We have seen reports of explosions in major western Yemenite cities like Al Hudaydah and several other cities there. That the likely result of these U.S. strikes, the strikes carried out by U.S. fighter jets, as well as Tomahawk missiles. Those are land attack missiles launched from Navy vessels. There's also an expectation, based on comments we've seen from the UK, that they might be a part of these strikes as well. Crucially, this is not a strike on a single location. These are multiple targets, and apparently based on reports of explosions from Yemen across multiple cities. The U.S. very much trying to send a message as it works to deter further attacks on commercial shipping lanes.
So I hope you heard what he said there. Various cities. So the U.S. has been attacking various cities.
Attacks that have forced some major shipping companies to entirely avoid the Red Sea, adding thousands of miles to shipping routes. It is because of this threat to shipping that the U.S. set up Operation Prosperity Guardian with more than 20 other countries to defend the shipping lanes, but that was purely defensive. This is an offensive operation targeting the Houthis in Yemen. The Houthis had vowed that they would respond to any sort of U.S. aggression with an even greater response. We saw them just on Tuesday launch 21 drones and missiles that were intercepted by U.S. and U.K. destroyers and aircraft. So you see over the course of the last 48, 72 hours, a potential major escalation in the Red Sea and the southern Red Sea. Again, the U.S. now carrying out strikes in Yemen using fighter jets as well as Tomahawk missiles against Houthi targets. They had warned this was a possibility. And Wolf, we are very much seeing that possibility play out as we speak.
Now let's pause here for a second, because I want you to remember where this guy is reporting from. This guy is reporting from the Pentagon. So just keep that in mind when you hear his talking points. Just keep that in mind.
This war could be expanding big time right now. MJ Lee, you're over at the White House for us. Has the White House said anything about this latest development?
Wolf, the White House has not officially commented yet, but I think it is worth noting how significant this action is, given that the U.S. had very much hoped that things would not devolve to this point. This has been a huge priority for the administration to essentially try to keep things in the Middle East contained. And
I don't believe that. and I'm sorry, I want to go ahead and push back against that. I never believed that the US government wanted to keep things as peaceful as possible. I never believed that the US government did not want the events in the Middle East to escalate. I have believed since day one, since that war started October 7th, I have believed since October 7th that the US government saw this as an opportunity to go to war with other countries in the Middle East. And I told you for the longest time, I think for a long time, they've been trying to find a way to go to war with Iran as well. So I don't believe anything that she's saying in reference to the US. They didn't really want to escalate things. That's bullshit. If the US government did not want events in the Middle East to escalate, the US government would not have been supplying Israel with weapons in the first damn place. It just is what it is at this point. We got to use common sense, people. If you want something to de-escalate, you don't throw fire on it, right? You don't add oil to the fire if you want to de-escalate a situation. The US government did that. They added oil to the fire by giving more weapons to Israel, which the US should have never done. They should have never been a part of it. Now they come after the Houthis? Is the US government crazy? Listen, these guys have nothing to lose. Yemen has been destroyed. Saudi Arabia has destroyed Yemen with the weapons that was given to them from the US government. People in Yemen are still living under the rubble. These people have nothing to lose. You think the Houthis won't go fight you to the end? You think they won't come after you to the end? You think they care if they're going to die in the process? They have nothing to lose. And that's what you have to watch out for. It's not the people that are going to fight back, but they got something to go home to. It's the people that are going to fight back. They ain't got nothing to go home to. Those are the ones you got to be careful for. So the US government going after them and targeting other cities in Yemen as well. This is very dangerous. And mind you, for all the criticism that people may have about the Houthis, mind you, they're trying to prevent war. They're blocking the weapons because they don't want Israel to continue a genocide. The US, who claims they want peace, are giving more weapons to Israel. They're continuing war. If you want peace, you don't continue war. But they're attacking the people who don't want to continue genocide.
Not have a broader regional conflict given the existing volatility in the region. It has also been a priority for the administration to not disturb the current truce in the Yemen civil war. Now, this action that we are now reporting out of the Pentagon clearly signals that the situation in the Red Sea has become completely intolerable for the U.S. and its allies. And we did see a bit of a turning point last week when a U.S. official said, following the weeks and weeks of provocations and the attacks from the Houthis in the Red Sea on these shipping vessels, that they were essentially giving the last warning, that there would not be another warning. And so given that we have seen these attacks and these provocations continue, in some ways, we were very much preparing for a different kind of response from the U.S. and its allies. Again, we haven't gotten an official word from the White House, but Wolf, as Oren was saying, given the significance of this kind of action by the U.S. In Yemen, we should expect to hear from the president in some way tonight. Wolf.
She didn't have an official word from the White House, but she had no problem going on CNN and giving her version of events. You see how this works? She's standing here right outside the White House. She said, we don't have, I'm sorry, but she says we don't have the official word from the president of the United States, but she had no problem coming on to CNN and giving her version of how things went down and what is supposed to be expected. Let me show you something else. You see this map? A U.S. Air Force RC-135W aircraft has departed from Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, heading towards southwest of Saudi Arabia to join the military operation against Yemen. So look at this map. Actually, I should have just stayed where I was. It was bigger that way. So this is what I want people to see, right? So this is the airspace. Here's Kuwait. Here's Iran. And you can see the planes coming through the Saudi airspace. This is why the Houthis made the statement, Saudi Arabia, if you allow the U.S. government's planes to come through your airspace to attack Yemen, we will consider this to be an all-out war against you too. Because remember, again, the Saudis attacked people in Yemen. They basically destroyed this country. So now, this is what I was saying when I said the U.S. government obviously was not trying to de-escalate. You got all these other countries involved now. They're using Saudi's airspace. Then there's this point here from Dan Cohen. I'll make it bigger because his words are tiny. Israel has been shooting fishing boats from Gaza every day for almost 20 years to destroy its fishing industry and keep it economically de-developed. Now that the Houthis are giving Israel a taste of its own medicine, the U.S. invokes freedom of navigation to attack Yemen. Another day in Biden's rules-based order. Statement from President Joe Biden on coalition strikes in Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen. So Dan is referring to this part right here. Today, at my direction, U.S. military forces, together with the UK and with support from Australia, Bahrain, Canada, and the Netherlands, successfully conducted strikes against a number of targets in Yemen used by the Houthi rebels to endanger freedom of navigation in one of the world's most vital waterways. So that's what Dan Cohen is referring to. But again, rules for thee, but not for me. This is the thing. Israel can get away with doing these types of things, but when another country decides to do it, it's problematic. Now, there's a tweet from Joe Biden that has been circulating again. It's from January 6, 2020. This tweet has made its way back on Twitter because people are starting to see some hypocrisy. You see, Joe Biden, when he decided to do this attack against Yemen, he didn't get approval from Congress. And there are multiple congressional members that have spoken out about it. Even Ro Khanna has spoken out about it. There are progressives that have spoken out about it. And there's conservatives that have spoken out against it. Believe it or not. I know, right? Who would have thought? People are saying it's unconstitutional. People are also saying that the president doesn't have the right to do that. I'm actually going to debunk that because we really have to clear the air here. We have to keep it real. But this tweet is back again because people have started to retweet this. And it shows Joe Biden as a hypocrite. Let's be clear. Donald Trump does not have the authority to take us into war with Iran without congressional approval. A president should never take this nation to war without the informed consent of the American people. That was January 6, 2020. But continue to tell me how they're so different. continue to tell me how Joe Biden and Donald Trump are so different. Right now, Joe Biden, under his administration, we have the war with Ukraine. We have the Israel-Gaza war. And now we have Yemen. Now, to those congressmen and women that are saying that the president actually cannot do that, he actually can. And this is the part I think some people have not looked into, and it's called the War Powers Resolution. So when I heard all of these Congress members complaining and they were saying, that's not right, he can't do that, he did not get the approval of Congress. He doesn't really have to get the approval of Congress. This is why I told you guys foreign policy should be something that you're concerned about. You should focus on foreign policy, and you should pay attention to a candidate's positions in reference to foreign policy, because this is one area where they can act on their own. Listen to this. The War Powers Resolution, also known as the War Powers Resolution of 1973, or the War Powers Act, is a federal law intended to check the U.S. president's power to commit the U.S. to an armed conflict without the consent of the U.S. Congress. The resolution was adopted in the form of a U.S. congressional joint resolution. It provides that the president can send the U.S. armed forces into action abroad only by declaration of war by Congress, statutory authorization, or in case of a national emergency created by attack upon the United States, its territories, or possessions, or its armed forces. The War Powers Resolution requires the president to notify Congress within 48 hours of committing armed forces to military action and forbids armed forces from remaining for more than 60 days with a further 30-day withdrawal period without congressional authorization for use of military force or a declaration of war by the United States. The resolution was passed by 2/3 of the House and the Senate, overriding the veto of President Richard Nixon. It has been alleged that the War Powers Resolution has been violated in the past. However, Congress has disapproved all such incidents, and no allegations have resulted in successful legal actions taken against the president. So I want to show you an example of someone who did this. Even Twitter, I was actually surprised by this, but even Twitter is actually, let me zoom out. Even Twitter is actually correcting this because so many people are saying it. So let's bring up, I saw this from Cori Bush. I know she was one of them that tweeted it. And I think it was this one. She was one of them. Here it is. See? So I want to show you guys, because their community notes is correcting this. POTUS can't launch airstrikes in Yemen without congressional approval. This is illegal and violates Article 1 of the Constitution. The people do not want more of our taxpayer dollars going to endless war and killing of civilians. Stop the bombing and do better by us. So right here, it says Congress has acknowledged the inherent executive power of the president to take military action in response to acts of terrorism in both the War Powers Resolution and the joint resolution passed by Congress September 14th, 2001. So that's why it's important to actually look some of these things up. Because the president, and I told you before, this is another example, the president can go around Congress when he wants to. He went around Congress to send aid to Israel. He went around Congress to do those airstrikes in Yemen. So just keep that in mind. Thank you, Unemployed Scholar. Yemen is confident it will win against the US, UK, and other coalition members. Thank you, John. The one way that Trump is different from Biden, Trump didn't start any new wars. That's true. You're right about that. Thank you, Nick says, thank you and bless you. Thank you, Matt Miller. Thank you, Sabby and Eric. And thank you for the super chat, Jay. So will Biden go around Congress to give everyone health care if that's the case? He could. Good question there, Jay. He could if he really wanted to do so. He doesn't want to do so.